السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا رب لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد بعد الرضا، ولك الحمد أبدا أبدا أبدا. والحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. والحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ لا صاحبة ولا ولدا. والحمد لله الذي لم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. والحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له، فمن يهده الله فلا هادي له، ومن يضلل الله فلا مضل له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة، فكشف الله به الغمة، وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه الله اليقين. فاللهم اجزه عنا خير ما جزيت نبيا عن أمته ورسولا عن دعوته، وصل اللهم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي حبيبنا ونبينا وقدوتنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. واعلموا إخوتي أن شر الأمور محدثاتها، وأن كل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول الله في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: ومن الناس من يتخذ من دون الله أندادا يحبونهم كحب الله، والذين آمنوا أشد حبا لله. ولو يرى الذين ظلموا إذ يرون العذاب أن القوة لله جميعا وأن الله شديد العذاب. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters, in Surah Al-Baqarah, He mentions and He describes to us two groups of people. that he says, from amongst mankind, from amongst humankind, there are those who take others as equals to Allah, that they love them as they should love Allah. But then Allah describes the true believers. He says, but the true believers are extremely loving towards Allah, that the true believers are increasingly loving towards Allah, that the true believers are deeply devoted to Allah. Then Allah says, if only the wrongdoers could see the horrible punishment awaiting them, they would certainly realize that all power belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Allah is indeed severe in punishment. My dear brothers and sisters, in the world that we live in today, in these challenging times, it feels like everything around us is pulling us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our lives are filled with distractions that crave for our attention. The constant buzz of social media, that our phones now are constantly dinging, the constant scrolling, that algorithms are created in order to capture your attention, to keep you focused. The allure of material wealth, everywhere you turn, it's all about the Bugattis and the huge mansions, that this is what the world is pushing for us to attain. The endless pursuit of entertainment, Netflix, Hulu. You know, when I was growing up, and I might not look the age, but there was only, your TV had maybe one or a few channels. And if you wanted to watch a movie, then you either had to wait for a specific time to watch a movie, or you had to go to a movie theater, or you had to rent it from Blockbuster. Now you have these apps, Netflix, Hulu, where you could binge watch 8, 10, 20 hours worth of entertainment. That everything around us is trying to do what? It's trying to engulf us in a state of ghafla, in a state of heedlessness. And as we approach Ramadan, brothers and sisters, if you remember, coming out of Ramadan, you felt that taqwa, you felt that iman, you felt that strength. Your iman was strong, your ibadah was strong. Everything, your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is strong. But as the days pass, and as the months pass, as we indulge in everything around us that is trying to distract us, you find ourselves that our iman is getting weaker and weaker by the day. And shaitan, he has promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this. قال فبعزتك لأغوينهم أجمعين. That our father Adam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked all the angels to bow down to him, to honor him, and when Iblis, he refused, and when Iblis was kicked out of Jannah, he says, قال فبعزتك لأغوينهم أجمعين. He promised Allah that I will misguide them all. إلا عبادك منهم المخلصين. Except your slaves that are firm, your slaves that are holding tight to your rope, your slaves that are sincere in your ibadah. So my dear brothers and sisters, today's khutbah, as Ramadan approaches, is that I wanted to remind myself before all of you, and remind you that there are certain things that we could get, that we could do, that we could strive for, that could get us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today, inshallah, I will be speaking about 5 things that could ignite the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our heart. That the social media and everything that we are watching, what is it doing? It is like small dots that are blackening our heart, that is trying to cover our heart, that is trying to keep us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what can we do in order to remove that smut from the heart, to cleanse the heart, to brighten the heart, so that we are closer to Allah, that we are not only loving Allah, but we are loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first thing, brothers and sisters, that I will mention today is reading the Quran with contemplation and understanding of its meanings. قراءة القرآن بالتدبر والتفهم لمعانيه. Brothers and sisters, wallahi, whoever wishes to speak to Allah and have Allah speak back to him, he needs to start to reflect, start to have a relationship with the Quran. يا منزل الآيات والفرقان بيني وبينك حرمة القرآن اشرح به صدري لمعرفة الهدى واعصم به قلبي من الشيطان. That, my dear brothers and sisters, if we build a relationship with the Quran, if we commit to having, whether it's in the morning or at night, having a time with the Quran where we sit with the book of Allah, we spend time reflecting on it, attempting to understand what is Allah trying to say. Why is this surah coming after this surah? Why is this ayah coming after this ayah? What does Allah mean by this word? Let me go research it. Let me go search it. Let me listen to some tafsir and understand what is this surah trying to tell me. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, if we dive deep into the ocean of the knowledge of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, listen to its tafsir and try to put a little bit of effort. First, wallahi, you will start to feel calmness and tranquility within your heart. Your anxiety will be gone. Your stress will be gone. This life, we live here in a rat race where you're constantly in a state of stress. You want to remove that stress? الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. This is not my words. This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it is with the remembrance of Allah. الذين آمنوا, those who believe and they find tranquility, they find peace, they find calmness, they find collectiveness, they find understanding with what? بذكر الله. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. That only with the remembrance of Allah that your heart will start to find that tranquility. So my dear brothers, we need to build that relationship with the book of Allah until we are comfortable with the book of Allah. Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu said that if our hearts truly became pure, we would never get bored from the book, from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, amongst you brothers and sisters, there are those who, we might not know them, but they have that love for the book of Allah. That they love reciting the book of Allah. That they find solace in the conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is not something that happens overnight, brothers and sisters. You see, we are creatures of habit. Just like these social media, just like these phones, just like everything around us is trying to change your habits to loving and serving these devices. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to build and help you build those habits that get you closer to Him. So it's not easy. It's not something that even if you start working out, you are a little bit sore at first. But you could start easy. You could start simple. Like we don't have an excuse these days, brothers and sisters. You have so many apps. You could just find Al-Quran or any kind of app. These apps now where you're able to take a few ayat and have them just repeating all day long. Listening to those ayat, reflecting on them. Trying to memorize those ayat. Trying to understand just 2-3 ayat a day. Just maybe 1 ayat a day. Live with it. Wallahi, you will feel the sweetness. Live with it. When you're praying every prayer, make sure that you recite this ayah. Make a connection with it. Once you do that, wallahi, you will feel the sweetness. Brothers and sisters, just look at Surah Al-Fatiha. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us to recite it 17 times a day? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, not just this world, all the worlds. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That you are standing in front of Allah. Thank you, Allah. Thank you, the Lord of all the worlds, for everything that you have given me. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. The most merciful to me. You have given me everything that I need. That no matter how much I sin against you, you are still forgiving me. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. That you are the king of the day of judgment. That one day I know that I will standing in front of you, and everything that I do, you will judge me. You will hold me accountable. Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Allah, we stand here in front of you, and Ya Allah, we need your assistance. Ya Allah, I am weak. Ya Allah, it's only through your help and support that I could be guided. Ya Allah, it is only through your help and support that I could take care of my family. Ya Allah, it is only through your help and support that I could be patient during a time of calamity. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Guide us to the straight path, Ya Allah. 17 times a day. اهدنا الصراط, minimum. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Guide us to the path of the prophets, of the righteous, of the Sahaba, of those who you bestowed your favor upon. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Not the ones that have gained your anger, Ya Allah, nor the ones who are astray. If we take the time in order to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in His book, in His word, wallahi, our connection with Him will increase, brothers and sisters. So the first thing, start contemplating in the Quran. Realize that this is a conversation that Allah is having with you. When you open the book of Allah, what is Allah going to tell me next? What message does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have for me? Number 2, brothers and sisters, become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the nawafil, through those extra credit prayers, those extra prayers. I want to first talk about a quote from this. He's not even a sheikh. He calls himself Akhi Ayman. Just a da'i. But he said something that's so profound. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a number. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a number. And that number is 2, 4, 4, 3, 4. 2 rak'ahs of Fajr, 4 rak'ahs of Dhuhr, 4 rak'ahs of Asr, 3 rak'ahs of Maghrib, and 4 rak'ahs of Isha. What is Sila? What is Salah? Salah is Sila, is a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To have a direct connection with Allah. That between Fajr and Dhuhr, whatever mistakes that I've made, now I'm calling upon Allah, Ya Allah, I made some mistakes. I made some sins. That between Dhuhr and Asr, same thing. That you have a direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But see, brothers and sisters, just like our phones, there are areas where you have strong signal and areas where you have weak signal. How do I strengthen the signal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It is through the nawafil. When you work out, you stretch before you start working out. How can you just, from all the bustle and hustle of work and from everything, you now jump and pray 4 rak'ahs of Dhuhr? Do you think that you're going to have khushu'? Do you think that you're going to have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But imagine you come a little bit early. Or before you pray, you go and you take your time, you're making wudu, you make the intention with everything. Ya Allah, cleanse my hands from the sins, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, cleanse my mouth from whatever I said that is wrong. Ya Allah, cleanse my face from everything that my eyes have seen. Ya Allah, cleanse my mind from everything that I've thought about that is wrong. And then you stand in front of Allah for 2 rak'ahs, and then you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and you reflect on it, and you take your time. Now, wallahi, when you pray Dhuhr, it has a different meaning. Now, your connection with Allah has a different meaning. You see, brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَزَالُ عَبْدِي يَتَقَرَّبُ إِلَيَّ بِالنَّوَافِلِ حَتَّى أُحِبُّهُ. That my slave keeps coming closer and closer to me through nawafil until what? Until I love him. You see, when your connection with Allah, when you start to maybe before every salah you make 2 rak'ahs, or maybe pray duha if you can, if you have time. Or maybe right after you do your shif' and witr, you do 2 rak'ahs. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in? Ya Allah, we are worshipping you. Ya Allah, allow me to wake up for Qiyamul Layl. Ya Allah, if you don't help me, I know I'm not going to be able to. You make the effort, but you put your reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then your iman will start to see a change, brothers and sisters. Number 3, brothers and sisters. دوام ذكر الله على كل حال باللسان والقلب والعمل. That you start to remember Allah, constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're stuck in traffic. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. This is something that you do just between you and yourself. As you're driving, as you're standing, waiting to check out, أستغفر الله وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله وأتوب إليه. Make that intention. You know what's the benefit of dhikr, brothers and sisters? And I'm sure that you guys heard this story before. It was mentioned that Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, this is one of the greatest scholars of his time. There was no social media at that time. That if you travel from one town to another, no one knows about you. So he was traveling and he ends up in this town. And he wanted to rest. It was getting late, so he went into the masjid and he laid down and he was trying to take a nap and rest. And then the guy who was in charge of the masjid, the security, was like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, no one could be here around this time. So he takes him and he kicks him out of the masjid. So now he's exhausted. This is Imam Ibn Hanbal. We all know him. We all read some of his tafasir and the work that he did for Islam. Now when we see a celebrity Imam, everyone knows him. People want to come and take pictures with him. This is Imam Ibn Hanbal getting kicked out of the masjid. So he's sitting there in front of the masjid exhausted. And right across the masjid there was a baker. And the guy who was doing baking, he saw him and he told him, I see you're exhausted. You could come and you could spend the night here with me, working at night. And so Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal was laying there and just sitting and trying to relax, and he saw that the man, as he's working and he's baking, Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. He was constantly making dhikr. Constantly making dhikr. Every time he makes something, he's making a dhikr. Astaghfirullah, atubu ilayh, la ilaha illallah, alhamdulillah. Just constant making dhikr. Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, he realized that he knows the benefit of dhikr. He asked him, Ya akhi, you're constantly making dhikr. Have you found any benefit of this dhikr that you make? He told him honestly, yes. There has never been a time where I raised my hand to Allah and I made dua to Him that He has not accepted, except one time. Except one time. One dua, until now He has not accepted. I told him, what is this dua? I told him, I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I want to meet Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Subhanallah. Imam Ahmed said, not only did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your dua, but Allah dragged the Imam He dragged him to you. Brothers and sisters, we all have stress. We might have financial issues. We might have issues with our families. We might have issues with our kids not listening to us. We all have some type of issues. This life is full for trials and tribulations. Make that connection with Allah. Make your tongue wet with the dhikr of Allah, so that when you make dua to Allah, that Allah will accept your dua. Number 4, brothers and sisters. Wallahi, we live in a time where these apps could be the best benefit. These phones could be your best friend or your worst enemy. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says through the mouth of His beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّ النَّظْرَةُ سَهَمٌ مِّن سَهَامِ إِبْلِيسِ مَسْمُومًا. That the eye, the stare, the look, it's like an arrow from Iblis that is poisonous. من تركها من مخافتي أبدلته إيمانا يجد به حلاوة في قلبي. That whoever leaves that look for my sake, that I will change it into a love in his heart, a sweetness of iman in his heart, that everything else in this world will be nothing. You see, brothers and sisters, these phones is, as you're scrolling, you might be seeing a hadith. You might be seeing something about Palestine, but next thing you think, you're seeing something that is displeasing to Allah. So it is a constant halal, haram, halal, haram, halal, halal, haram, haram. This is the life that we live in. And we have become desensitized to it. Most of you, if you lived outside of America, if you lived in a country, a Muslim country, when you first come here and summertime comes and you're seeing, I have friends who live in Saudi, and they come and visit their families here during the summer. He's like, I can't take it. Because they're not used to it, but we have become desensitized to it. That you see and khalas, your eyes has become normal. Not knowing that your heart is being affected, brothers and sisters. So let us try to control ourselves. Let us make that intention that when you lower your gaze, Ya Allah, I want you to love me more, Ya Allah. This is why I'm doing it. Ya Allah, I want you to accept my dua, and this is why I'm doing it. Number 5, my dear brothers and sisters, and the last, is that مطالبة القلب بأسماء الله ومعانيه ومشاهدتها ومعرفتها. That one thing that we could do, brothers and sisters, to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to take the time to reflect on His names, on His attributes. Example, think about the name of Allah, Al-Latif. What does that mean? The subtle one, the most gentle, the most kind. Imagine, brothers and sisters, you know that there are millions of tons of rain that come down throughout the year, around the world. Imagine if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides that all of that rain comes in one spot. Imagine the devastation that will happen. Many of you saw last year what happened in Pakistan. We all saw it in the news. That just a little bit extra of rain, we saw it what happened in Libya. That whole towns were taken out. But Allah, the gentle one, what does He do? He makes sure everything is in due proportion. That He gives you what you need. And maybe if He takes it away from you, it's for a reason. Maybe He wants you to get closer to Him. But everything is with due proportion. That is the Latif. That is your Lord, the Lord. That Al-Kareem, Al-Khallaq, the creator, the maker. That if you are a doctor here and you've been doing surgeries, you understand what a kidney, how much a kidney is. That Allah has given you something, a body that is full functioning. You don't need an oil change. That your heart is constantly beating until the age of 70. That your eyes are working, you don't need new lenses. That even your phone, you buy the phone new, within 5-6 years, what happened to the camera lens? It is all scratched up. That Allah gave you a body that is fully functioning, everything working in the best manner. Never asked you for anything. Never asked you to pay $20,000 for an implant. Gave you everything working, and all He asked for you is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. That created you only to worship me, to thank me. Brothers and sisters, let's be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by trying to the best of our ability to do that which is pleasing to Him. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. My dear brothers and sisters, the last thing that I want to remind you of is that as we get closer and closer to the month of Ramadan, and I say, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan. Ya Allah, allow us all to reach Ramadan. Ya Allah, allow us all to benefit from Ramadan. But the work for Ramadan starts now, brothers and sisters. Don't wait till the last week or the day of in order for you to condition yourself to prepare for Ramadan. Start fasting now, Mondays, Thursdays. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to fast most of Sha'ban. If you drink coffee, lower that dose. Or at least change the habit so you're drinking it early. Take the time in order to build that relationship with the Book of Allah. Make dhikr. But one last thing that I want to remind you, I am with Islamic Relief USA. My name is Mohamed, Ahmed, and I am the manager for the Mid-Atlantic region. And I wanted to introduce myself to you, and I want to introduce you all to the benefit of sadaqah, of giving for the sake of Allah. That when it comes to a sadaqah to burhan, that our beloved Prophet ﷺ that said that sadaqah is a form of certainty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, Ya Allah, I believe that what I'm giving, I am giving it knowing that you will increase it 10 times. Today I'm not coming to ask you for anything. But I want to make sure that each and every one of you, that when the month of Ramadan comes, that you support organizations, brothers and sisters. Starting with this masjid. That this masjid of yours, this is the future of your kids. That this is the place where your kids will find that connection with Allah. That the peace that you will find here in the masjid, you will find nowhere else. The relationship that your kids will build in this masjid, they will build nowhere else. So make sure that the first thing that you do is you take care of your community. But also, do not forget Islamic Relief and other organizations when it comes to your zakat, because we try to help those around the world as well. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who work towards pleasing Him. Ya Allah, allow us to be sincere to You. Ya Allah, allow us to work towards getting closer and closer to You. Ya Allah, allow us to have the love of opening Your book and contemplating it. Ya Allah, allow us to be of those who want to pray those extra prayers and feel the love for it. Ya Allah, allow us to be of those who are constantly in dhikr of You. اللهم اجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين اللهم اجعلنا من عبادك المتقين اللهم اغفر لنا وعافنا واعف عنا وتوفنا مسلمين. Ya Allah, help and support our brothers in Palestine. Ya Allah, help and support our brothers in Palestine. Ya Allah, make them strong. Ya Allah, those who have passed away, accept them as shuhada. Ya Allah, those who are still alive, give them the patience. Ya Allah. Allow them to be patient and allow them to be strong so that You are pleased with them. Ya Allah, help the Muslims all around the world. Ya Allah. Allow them to be of those who are patient in their times of calamity. Ya Allah, allow us as they are patient. Ya Allah, allow us to be thankful to You with the ease that You have given us. عباد الله اتقوا الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله يذكركم واستغفروه يغفر ذنوبكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تفعلون وقوموا إلى صلاتكم.